the Harbir Singh podcast.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. It's a huge honor for me to have Prableen Kaur on the show today. MrsKaurTeaches on Instagram, so check out her profile. Before we go any further, please like, comment, share. It helps the video get out to more people, so loads of people can learn from the things that Penji has to share. And so first of all, thank you, because I know you've had a lot going on. You've moved to the US. You've got married recently, so lots of transitions, and I think you're moving as well. So, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast when you have so much going on.
No, thank you so much. It's nice to just have Sangat back from the UK again. So I'm happy to really be here. So thank you.
Thank you. I really like your page. I've been following you, and I really like your energy, the positivity that you spread. So, kudos to you for that on Instagram.
All Maharaj, all completely Maharaj, all comes from Sikhi. Without, all the good come from Sikhi. Nothing. If it was me, it'd be a really dead page.
So, as our first topic, you did a post, well, I saw some of your Instagram stories from your students, and, some people are saying you've changed their life, and how there was one person who wrote this message saying that they weren't into Sikhi at all. And then from meeting you, they started to have an interest in it again and stuff. So that's amazing. I was just talking to Darshako about the power of teachers and the influence that a good teacher can have on someone's life. So have you experienced that a lot?
I think it was really weird when I was leaving. I think one of the students that really stood out for me was one of the students I thought, it was a really difficult student. And I thought, I must have not done anything here. And she had written such a long message for me. And I was just like, you really don't realize? It was only in the end moments where I was like, oh my God, because I remember talking to people and them saying, I was like, I'm not teaching them technically fully Sikhi, especially the younger years. And they were like, and I'd always downplay it quite a lot. And I'd be like, I'm not doing much. But I think it's just the fact of a lot of students, and generally people, not just students, have had one experience with, say, an dhari or a sikh or someone. And then that kind of taints their vision of Sikhi. And then when you've got a person that's on their level and just talks to them quite normally, watches the same thing, watches the same things as them. And I literally had such a laugh with them all the time. And it was always they always knew when they walked into the room, I'd have really meditative music in the background, and they knew that they walked in and it was going to be really a chill lesson or a debate or something. So I think because I was on their level and I was just a normal person, then they were able to explore more and then ask questions that they really couldn't ask other teachers, and be very, very open and know oh, you know what, there's going to be no judgment here. And it was a friendship. It was genuinely a friendship. They were all my friends. I was excited to go to the lessons where I was like, oh, I'm going to see them. It was genuinely I made good friends there. They had they updated me of their life. I updated them. It was a really nice atmosphere. And I think those are the kind of ways to allow Sikhi to enter, because it needs to come from a joyful and loving way. It can't be forced upon you. Kids don't need lectures. Adults don't need lectures. It's a different playing field in terms of prachar as well now. It needs to happen quite differently. And I think that's why it just happened naturally, because Sikhi was never forced. I feel it was always even when I taught them Christianity, whatever religion it was, I'm going to not tell you my opinion. These are all the range of opinions that exist, and you can choose what you like. And I think that gave them a lot of freedom as well, and be like, oh, look, Miss Kaur, just tell us what you think. Because it would be easier. We'll just follow what you think. And it's no, you need to think what you need to think and build your own personality and character. And they were genuinely lovely kids as well. I loved them all. I really enjoyed high school. Yeah, enjoyed teaching them.
That's amazing, because stereotypically that's the most difficult age to work with, right? I know that when I was at school, I was a nightmare at that age. So how do you manage teenagers?
There were students. I'm not gonna lie, there were students, but I think it just comes down to they are going to push your button and see how far you're going to go. They're going to test the waters. That's just normal, and they're going to do that. I remember even when I first walked in, I I'd hear like people shouting things and all this random stuff. And they're going to push and see where is her boundary. And then from that point onwards, like when you like set the boundaries, you do have to, it wasn't just me walking in and being like, oh, hi guys, I'm your friend, best friends. You can't do that. It's very much, you lay down the rules and then you play within those. And you're like, okay, for me, it's respectful if you don't ever shout out and never talk over anyone else. If one person's talking, one person's talking. And that's not just like a classroom rule, that's a life rule, right? And when they couldn't do it, like I wouldn't shout at them. For me, I'm very, very anti-shouting, very like always have been. I think that's because I've grown up in a different environment where there was a lot of shouting. So I don't respond to shouting myself because I feel like even a child, when they're young, you shout when they're not listening. But I was all like, I will listen if you say it to me at a normal level and I will actually do it. So when I went into teaching as well, I made sure that it was never, you can say the same things you want to say, but you don't need to shout. And I know loads of kids shut down as well because I was teaching with predominantly Asian children as well. And that's a trigger. If I start shouting and then they're shouting at home and it just doesn't link up very well. So it was just making sure that they felt safe. They didn't feel like, oh, you know, Miss Paul's going to flip. She's going to change the script and she's going to get really angry or mad. So when they did do mistakes, I'd always make a joke about it. So it'd be like, oh, that's really clever. Like I love it when you listen to everyone, but they're not listening to anyone. They're just talking. I'm like, oh, I love it when you really listen to my instructions. So it's amazing. You're so talented. And everyone's just laughing, but it's telling them off, but it's in like a nice way. And they're like, oh, they're a bit embarrassed. They're like, okay, cool. I'm going to stop, Miss. And they always like, obviously they linger like, Miss, why are you going to do me like that? Why are you going to do this to me? And it's like, and they'll stop. And it's that method. I think firm but fair, you know, is balancing it. I think shouting and dealing with students and aggression will never work in your favor. And just whenever they do something wrong, it's like, you know, even when we have detentions, so it's, again, they think sometimes it was like, oh, but Miss, you're my friend, you can't give me detention. It's like, no, you get detention. What do I look like? And they get detention, and it's that, those are moments, detentions aren't there for them to sit for an hour doing work. It's there for you to talk and be like, okay, so what happened there? How are we going to make sure it's not going to happen next time? And if you're not having that discussion, they're going to be in detention every lesson. So it's, I think, similar as when we do camps with kids as well. It's like similar conversations. It's across the board.
That's amazing because it's so new to me. At home, it was like you know, normal Punjabi family. You get shouted or beaten if the parent wants to make their point, and then and yeah, similarly, like that approach didn't really work for me and my brother because it was just my mum at home, so we didn't really take it seriously once we got to a certain age. So that approach didn't work, and then with kids as well, I feel like it's amazing how teachers can somehow get kids to do things without having to nag or shout and these types of things. So like, yeah, I mean, I wish there was like a class on this kind of stuff for parents, because my kids are very young, but sometimes it feels like they're teenagers, and we just don't know what to do with them sometimes, because you know, we might say, can you do this, and say no. And then it's like, okay, what do you say? How do you kind of build that relationship to a degree where you have that like adherence to things that you need them to do, or is that not really practical?
I think firstly, like I've obviously met you before, but you have a very calm nature, and that shows. I think upbringing can really make people go the opposite way, or you know, the same way. And I think you've gone completely the opposite then. And I think then we can, you know, implement those sort of things. And in terms of if a kid says no, I think it's figuring out why they're saying no. So I remember once, I know this is probably not the best example, but there was a student, and she was like, I'm not going to read off the board. And we'd do it as a game. We'd do that popcorn reading, which is like one person chooses another person, they choose another person. And whenever she'd get chosen, she'd be like, I'm not going to read. I don't know how to read. And she was like really old, and we're like, you know how to read. And she was just completely denying it. And it could have been me saying, no, you're going to read today, like, and enforcing like my ego, like, I'm the teacher here, you're going to read. And I was like, okay, that's okay, let's just move on. She's being a bit disrespectful. I was like, let's move on, we'll talk about it later. And even in the moment, not saying, never embarrass your kids in front of other people as well. So if someone's over, kids feel embarrassed too. So she would have felt embarrassed if I was like, you're staying behind. and at the end, like whispering to her, like, oh, you're going to stay behind, I need to talk to you. And then at the end, not telling her during the time as well. And then when they stay behind, and I remember asking her, you know, what reading, and it was just like she was embarrassed because she makes so many mistakes. And if I'd forced her, she would have been so angry, probably walked out.
Yeah,
but then it's figuring out what the root cause is. With kids, we've had that as well, like where, you know, at camps where they'll be like, oh no, like, oh, I don't want to do that Benji anymore. Like, I don't want to do that. And it's just like, it's hard, but it's like putting a lot of energy towards it. And like, instead of making it like a negative, I think it's like kids feel the ego play too. They feel if someone's enforcing something on them, they're like, no, I'm right. Like, they still feel that they're kids. They're like, no, I want to do it. So it's like not battling egos and just being like, okay, but okay, what do you want to do? Let's do something else for like 2 minutes and then we'll do that. There needs to be like almost a deal for them. Like, how does this benefit me? Kids feel that as well. Like, how is this going to benefit me? And it's like, I think I saw a video on this kid as well. Like, he was picking stuff up on the store and he kept, and he's like, Mom, I want this. And she'd be like, let's take a picture of it and we'll get it for your birthday. And she wasn't going to get it for her birthday, but it's that not ignoring them and being like, no, you've had all the toys. And it's still, they weren't, I know it's mean, it's a bit like, but it's acknowledging their feelings and then being like, okay, acknowledging, okay, why is it no? Or we might not have the time for that every single time, but those discussions and that trust that will build over time will become that, because we see like Sikh children around, and I ask the parents as well, like, how are they so agyakari to you? They listen to everything. And it's because they have trust relationships. They have such strong trust relationships where they have trust with their parents so well, and that communication is there. And it's just, again, it's the ego place, taking interest in what their interests are and using it like, oh, you know, our niece here that I've met loves Roblox and stuff. So we're like, oh, you know, like if you learn your face, I'll buy you some Roblox stuff. And she's like, really? I'm like, yeah. And it's like, even Sikhi has to be fun. You can't, the way we were taught Sikhi as well was in a bash, and if you don't sit and listen for Hukam Nama, like you're in trouble. Like if you laugh or anything during a das, you are in trouble. And that's not the way to get our kids into Sikhi. Okay, if you're being naughty during Hukam Nama or something, like I'll get you like a sweet. If you close your eyes and put your hands together, I'll get you your favorite sweet. And then they do it. They know there's a reward system there then. And they're like, okay, we'll do this. We know how to work the system. And then eventually they have kiddie sangat, and they see other people doing it and they copy because they're like, Dad, I want to do that too.
That's really interesting. I'm taking all these mental notes for when I'm dealing with my son. And he is a good boy, and so is my daughter. And I can see how some of those things would really work. What's your opinion on TV? Because I like Darshkul has a very kind of strong opinion, like kids shouldn't watch TV, messes with their head and all that kind of stuff. And then I was kind of brought up on TV. It was just leave the kid in front of the TV, and then you can get on with the things you need to do. And then within our friends circles, we've got kind of a mix of both of those approaches, and somewhere along the spectrum. But what's your thoughts on it? Like I do fall back on it sometimes when I need just like a time out. I say, oh, do you guys want to have TV time? And then, but yeah, no, it's not the best.
And let me just make clear, I will make absolutely no judgment. I don't have kids, so I would probably stick them on the TV because they'd probably annoy me. I'll be like, just watch it for the next 6 hours. So obviously I understand that I'm coming from a place of not full understanding here. Apart from, you know, looking after, you know, kids camps and all the kids there in one go. But I think that it's what you want to, too much, how do you say, moderation, right? Everything in moderation. There needs to be a balance with everything. So if you cut them off completely, then they're going to go wild when they're older. That's with, say, anything. Like if you cut them off from anything at this age, then they're just going to go so wild when they're older. Or if you allow them to indulge too much, it becomes their habit because they're doing it all the time. So when they grow up, they're going to be like, you know, how can you not watch TV? So even me and Guri, we're quite different. Like he, you know, watches a lot more than I do. And like I like had actively stopped when I was in like high school, sixth form. Like I was like, I'm not going to watch this anymore. This is too much. Like you can't stop. Like I couldn't stop it. It just kept going. There's a new show and then there's a new show and there's a new episode.
Yeah, it's addictive.
So I consciously stopped it in that sense. But then it's like just being able to watch a little bit, I guess it gives a bit of a break So again, I think it's moderation. If you stop completely, like I remember we grew up, like my parents used to always use example, there was an Uncle G that locked the TV in the cupboard and said no TV for the kids. And we used to feel like really sorry. We thought, oh my God, they don't have a TV. But it's just that balance, I think. And especially like Maj Girpa, like more content comes to the kids, which is Sikhi orientated. So that they can, you know, even when it comes to my kids, that they can actually watch it and be like, you know what, Dad, this isn't boring. I can watch this. And hopefully there'll be more available for them. But I don't think it's completely bad because I'm sure they pick up a lot from TV. Like you learn a lot, you know, especially from certain shows. Imagine they're into like nature discovery shows, then they're going to learn so much, or like the geography show, or the horrible histories. They'll be, you know, super, like they'll know so much. But, you know, I say this to Harbir as well, like I don't know if kids will understand this, but we can try explaining it to them. But everything you watch is stored in your brain, right? Everything. Even if it's on the TV and you're not directly watching, it's gone in your brain, it's photographed, and it's in your memory box. And now those kind of things are going to enter your dream, and they're going to enter your conscious and your unconscious system. So with the kids, they'll just say, okay, if you're going to watch a scary movie, don't be surprised if all this stuff comes in your dream, and they don't come to me when you're crying, right? Because it's going to come and they're going to get you, right? And I always had to be like, I even now, I only watch funny things or like a rom-com. I'll be like funny or rom-com, because if I'm going to enter stuff into my psyche, it's going to be good stuff, because you're going to have to deal with my nightmares, because I'm 100% going to get them. Whether it be 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, it's going to come, and it's going to be like the weirdest shapes and faces. And so I think just entering, if you do choose TV, then allowing them to watch positive things. I don't agree with, especially in kids in school, they would be playing all these really aggressive games in like year 7, and it would come out in their behavior and their language, and when they would draw stuff for us, you know, blood and all this stuff. And it was like, obviously it was very, you know, we had to flag that up. Graphic games, I'd be completely against those kind of things, you know. If your Pajangi was like, I want to go play this game, and I was like, no, because it does make a big influence, huge influence. But if it's like, you know, they want to watch Peppa Pig, I don't know how dangerous Peppa Pig is, you know. I don't think Peppa Pig is that dangerous. So moderation, you know, and just watching it,
I was watching something a bit scary yesterday. Actually, it was about murder. And I was trying to go to sleep, and I was replaying the things I had seen in the show. So it's, you know, even as an adult, it's definitely true what you're saying.
But even in Simran though, like I say this, I'm like, that's all my responsibility in Simran. If those things are coming to my head, I'd rather like funny stuff be coming and nice stuff than like that stuff. I was like, I don't, and stuff like that. That's my responsibility, right? And then people understand that, because whenever anyone's like, oh, let's go watch a scary movie in the cinema, and they're like, oh, tu darpoka, you're scared. I'm like, it's not about being scared. I was like, at least I don't entering dumb stuff in my brain, but at least I can choose the dumb stuff.
Yeah. And humor is very powerful. Like my daughter sometimes watches stuff, and the way they depict females, she watches this Ladybug program. So the ladies were wearing like lycra that's really tight fitting, and there's a cartoon animation, so she's over, you know, she has this figure, and then there's a lot of like boy girl stuff. So my Darshko doesn't let her watch that anymore, but there's kind of a lot of that conditioning going on as well, I feel. And with my daughter, I see it play out, because she'll want to do certain things, or she'll want to wear certain things because it's the kind of stuff that she's seen on TV, or one of her friends is doing it in nursery or something like that. So I think there's a lot of pressure on. There's all this kind of conditioning for women to kind of adhere to a certain image and that kind of stuff. And I know you did a post well, it wasn't that recently, but you did a post on kesh, right? Like saying that it's completely natural and stuff. So I wanted us to kind of touch on that. Obviously, I know I don't have any personal experience of that, being a female and stuff, but I know that's something that a lot of people that I've spoken to kind of struggle with. And I think part of it is that there's this accepted or kind of conformative view of what a female should look like in kind of modern day society, and then I think there's a conflict sometimes between that and when people want to practice Sikhi and want to advance on the journey in Sikhi. So like, have you come across that in doing camps or in schools, and how do you kind of navigate that?
Yeah, I think there's so much of that in terms of even if we go beyond Sikhi, like there's so many insecurities played on by so many industries for women, because if they don't, then they won't exist simply, and they have to make you feel those insecurities for them to sell their product. And in terms of your daughter, it's very difficult, especially when the older she gets. It is gonna get a bit harder, especially when she reaches high school, like secondary school, because there's so many people with an opinion of you, and saying people are scared. And just in terms of your daughter, I'd say going into Sangat again and seeing people that are similar like her. So it's even here, like when we had a program and all these little kids were in Bane, and like all of them were like had their shastar, and it was like they all build each other up. And the same for us, right? So if we go home and we watch something scary or something dumb, we go back into Sangat and we remember who we are. Same for the kids. They might watch stuff like that, but if they keep going back where they belong, they're going to keep that identity. But if they stop going, if it's not in moderation and that stimulus is like high enough, then and they go back to the Sangat, then there's going to be a point where there's no return. But it's like Marj Gipa, like having like Sikh parents that can keep that moderation up until a certain point, hopefully. And in terms of like insecurity, there's so many with women, like especially when I was teaching as well, and especially at camps, there was a lot. When you spend a bit of time, it all comes out. And I think that you have to, no matter where you are in the journey, like where I am now, where I'm super comfortable in my gears, and I've like never ever doubted the beauty, where like I look and I don't see anything wrong, like, and I think that's from Guru Sahib fully. Like that comes from Guru Sahib, where you only see beauty and you're like, oh, this is amazing. Like Mara just made me like this, and this is like I really enjoy the way I look, but that's because of Guru Sahib. But whenever this question comes up, I always try to place myself back into a moment where I wasn't feeling that like that. So in high school, when I wasn't wearing the star, and we had to wear shorts for PE, and everyone had shaved legs, and I felt really uncomfortable when I had unibrow, and people would say things to me. I need to remember those times, and it's scary when you look a certain way and people are picking on you, and everybody looks a different way. I think it's a lot to do with confidence, and building that confidence, and having people around you that saying, there's nothing wrong with the way you look. You are beautiful the way you look. And also, Barney and Bana come hand in hand. The two cannot exist without each other. So, I had friends in high school that started wearing the star, and because the Barney wasn't there, the Bana slipped very quickly. And then this only exists with the other one. Jinnata si Gurbani parange, like the more you read Gurbani, the more you'll go inward and realize that everything is beautiful. So the emphasis really, really needs to be on like more Gurbani, and then your Bana will become more and more beautiful. Guru Sahib will bless you with more and more Shingar, not just outside but inside as well. Like he will give you daya, like he will give you compassion, he'll give you santosh, contentment, and then he'll give you Shingaras, and he might give you a Bana, he might give you the star, and there's other routes as well. Like when you are struggling with your case, firstly, it's understanding as well, like we said about the industry, right? They're going to sell, and it's always going to change. The way beauty has looked will always change. It's forever changing for society. There will be a different thing. I remember when I was in high school, it was having short hair up to here and having a hair, because I think it was a musician, Jessie J. It was Jessie J. Once she did that, everybody had Jessie J hair. And then, whoever's at the forefront in celebrity, like that's what people will do, and that's always going to change. And it's up to you. Are you going to keep going along with that change, or are you going to try to sit with yourself and think, who am I? And it's like that aspect of remembering, even if you're not religious and you're not spiritual, is thinking, there's things growing on my body naturally. And when you think about it, even in science terms, like everything's there to protect you, like your nose hair stopping like bacteria and things coming in, and everything, like keeping me warm, the hair, like it's all there for a reason. It's not there like randomly. And it's reading those posts. There's really, really good posts about this as well, like in terms of racism as well, and how like shaved women and colour was playing a big role. And it's something to look into. Once you understand what people are doing, it makes it easier as well. And then Sangat, like, be surrounded by Sangat where nobody, the real Sangat, there's loads of Sangat out there, right? I'm not one to say fake, so not real Sangat. Jithe Sangat hai, jithe Bani pari jandi hai, jithe naam jape janda, where you talk about the Guru. If you have that Sangat, your focus will be on Maharaj, and Maharaj will give you the love, the strength, everything you need. And if you're in a Sangat where like everybody looks, has the Bana, has the Swarup, but they don't talk about Guru, they don't speak about Guru, then were you really ever going to be able to maintain your Sikhi? Because you're never talking about Guru, even if you're like, you know, doing Khoj of Gurbani or listening to Katha or anything. If you're not doing it, then how is your Bana ever going to stay? It's just against, it's like a science experiment. It's never going to stay. But having Sangat is so important. It's like, but not just in terms of your guests, everything. It's the Sangat Childanya, then like how much of a Sikhi is going to stay. It's the Sangat that makes you reach Vaheguru. That it's only the like with the Sangat and like Guru Sahib. But I know that some like obviously from camps and stuff, some people really struggle, right? And it goes to a really hard place. And then I think when you do that, I think when you do that, it's important to remember that you can go talk to the Panj. People don't really know this and do this very often, but the Panj isn't just for Amrit and Jars. You can walk in there anytime and talk to them about anything. So if you're struggling with your Amrit Villa, if you're struggling to stay in Sikhi, or if it's just like a dispute that's happened or like something financial, anything, you are allowed to enter that Amrit and Jar and ask them a question. So if you're struggling with your case, go to your, like, I mean, this is like, if you're really struggling, go to the Panj and be like, you know, like, I'm really struggling with my case. What should I do? And they might tell you, you know, like, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਪੜੋ, like ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਹ ਕਰੋ, like, or they might give you a lot of hosla and a lot of prem. And I don't know exactly what they'll say, but they are Guru Roop at that point. Whatever the Panj say, they are Guru Roop. So whatever comes out their mouth is Guru Gobind Singh Ji saying it. So take that on. And they will say exactly the medicine that's needed for you. Every single person is different. Every single person needs to hear different things. You can't say for one Bibi the same thing applies for the other Bibi. They have completely different bringing environments, upbringing, Sangat, everything's different. So when you go to the Panj, you get that specific medicine that you might need. If it is, you know, at that level, they'll say specifically exactly what you need. And that could be really helpful. But yeah, I think it can be a struggle, but March Gurba, if you could keep in Sangat, keep reading Gurbani, you know, it will get to a point like March Gurba, like even personally, right? It's been a good maybe 10, 11 years, but haven't really thought about it like in a negative way. But when I was in high school, I did think of it very negatively, like the most negative you can think about it. And I was cutting hair without my parents knowing. So I had reached the extreme where like people had influenced me so much and my mind had taken me there. So I understand how difficult it can be. And the pressures, especially when you're younger, pressures are so much easier because you're still building your identity. So I think it's so important for kids from a young age to be really strong with their identity and know who they are, so that when people, it's like Gyani Muslim say, or Jarani, like you can't move that jar, like it's there. Like if anybody says anything, you can say something back. Once I started like wearing the star and stuff, if anybody said anything to me, like I was very shocked. I would be able to say anything back because I knew, like I was like, you can't like test me here. But again, when you answer these questions or whenever someone goes across this, it's really important to remember where you came from. Because if I was talking about it from the place I am, then I'm not being empathetic. And it's important to remember like how difficult it was, and it can be really difficult. So and it's important to talk to Bibia, talk to elders. They can be really helpful. Grosics can be really helpful. And it's okay to struggle. I think we're all going to struggle with different things at different points. One day you might be fine with your sleep and another day you're not. It's same with Singhs. I know Singhs really struggle with their beard, like how long it is. So
I know Darshako struggled as well when she was in high school and stuff. So I think it's like a normal process that we all go through. So to kind of along that same vein, you didn't know I was going to ask you this, but we have a mutual friend, right? Vijay Singh, and he teaches at I'm not going to say where he teaches, but he was saying how like lust and relationships are a big issue in like the kind of people that he sees in college, and obviously in high school. I feel like that's a particular time as well where lots of people get into relationships and stuff, and kind of exploring lots of different things, and relationships being one of them. But yeah, do you have any advice for the younger people who might be listening to this, who are going through that phase where I'm personally, when I went through high school, I think I was just seeking validation and just wanted other people to like me, so I thought I would be worth liking. It was just like validation, I think, and I sought that in relationships. But yeah, so I think, do you have anything on that? Because I know that's a big thing, like it's for any age. I think that's a big thing in terms of the relationships and that whole kind of girl boy thing, and so yeah, like how people navigate that. I guess a lot of the things you said that apply to image and being confident in your own skin would apply to relationships as well.
Yeah, 100%. I think this topic is really important. Like, I try to talk about it at camps as well, and have open discussions about it, because a lot of people just don't have the knowledge, so they don't know what to do, and they just really don't know what to do. I think just personally, like, I think, I don't know if it's girls go later, but like, because I started running at the start, like, it was very different. It was like a protection. So it was like, throughout secondary school, like, it was March good, but like, and through sixth form, everything was, protected because of the star. It's like a wall, almost, like people won't. But then at the same time, I have spoken to Sikh people where their daughters are getting approached that do have a star, based because confidence is attractive as well. When someone's super confident, it's very attractive. But it's something that needs to be talked about more, because Gurbani talks about it constantly, and Bhagat Kabirji says it starts at such a young age. So it's being conscious about what's happening, and if you are walking the Sikhi path, you need to remember that Toda sanjog likhya, like your sanjog is written. And now, if you indulge in these relationships, right, which is normal for this society, like it's very, very normal to indulge in those relationships. Every relationship you have, you're taking something on with that, and when you leave that relationship, and then you're going to bring that all into your Anand garage. All of that is going to come with you. It doesn't just, you don't just wash it off. Like it comes with you, and there's anything that happened during that time, trauma, insecurities, everything comes with you. And it's very difficult to not act on calm and not act on being in a relationship, because you want more. Like, when you're not indulging in Sikhi and getting their attention, then that's a way of getting attention, and pleasing the ego, like, because the ego enjoys that. It really, really enjoys that. And it's knowing that there are methods and ways to, and firstly, not knowing that you're not alone in this. Like, Kaam, Krodh, Loh, Mohankar, it's repeated. They sit in this house. They are in this house. They are as equal. And Kaam and Krodh are the most powerful ones, which is like Agavakan Hunde, like they just burn everything, because you do it, you get angry in an instant, or you get lustful in an instant, and it just burns everything. It burns all your bhakti. And again, it's really having asra in Gurbani, and staying in Sangat. In Sangat, you can't do Kaam acts. In Sangat, you can't do Krodh acts. Full stop. How are you going to stand up in Sangat and start shouting at people or do something calmly? So if you're struggling, a physical thing that you can do is just go in Sangat. Like, if you go to the Gurdwara, which is hard to do in the moment, but what are you going to do in front of Guru Sahib? What are you going to do? So Sangat is really important. And I know, like, I know it's not talked about in like BB Sangats as much, but I know it's talked about in Singh Sangat, because I know in the camps, whenever we'd reflect on the questions, the Q&As with the Singhs and the Bibia, the Singhs one had a lot to do with garment and stuff like that, and the cause one would be very, very different. Like, we wouldn't even touch those subjects. So I think the Singhs have a lot more help with that, because elder Gursikhs will, and a lot of the Gursikhs elder, like that you see openly, are male, so you can openly talk to male Gursikhs about it. And I think, again, I'm identifying gaps here because there's more, we should be promoting more bibia to be at the forefront, so that our daughters have someone that they can go talk to and feel comfortable, because you might not want to talk to your mum and dad about it, but you might be comfortable talking to this bibi that's at this camp or at the gurdwara, because you feel comfortable and you know your information will stay there. So I think you can talk to people about it, and these things can become addictions as well. Like I read Russell Brand's 12-step book, I think it was like 12 steps to recovery, you know, and those things come up in that as well. So if you are very far gone, there are ways to, you know, try your best. And I think the thing that kills people the most is it's a cycle, isn't it? It's you do something, the guilt, you feel bad, and then you do it again. You feel bad. It's the guilt in Sikhi, like the guilt. And I think it's, you know, that guilt can be very overpowering, and then you just keep doing it again because you feel so bad. You're like, oh, I'm such a bad person, and keep doing it again. I think it's doing ardas, you know, and just laying your cards out and being like, you know, I'm really struggling with this. And there's loads of shabads for that, you know, Kaam krodh, lomo, shutwa, you know, save me from this. I can't be saved. And why would those shabads be there? Why would Guru Nanak Dev Ji write those shabads if they weren't there to be used? So it's like people ignore, and then guilt, they pretend like it's not even there. Ignore and guilty. But if you start accepting, you know what? Okay, Gurbani said, "Main kaam bhi, main log bhi, main hunkari." Like, all these shabads are there already. You don't even have to make this up. Like, Gurbani is there to help you, right? So it's like accepting, okay, you know what? Kaam exists in me, growth exists in me, these things exist in me, good side. And then once you've accepted it, now you know what you're facing. Like, you know your opponent. You're like, okay, you're here. I accept that you're here. Most people don't even get to that point where they're like, no, like, it doesn't even exist. I'm not even going to pretend like it's there. But then you need to realize, I remember we talked about it in a camp, it was like, the porn industry is like the most used industry ever. And I think India is the most places used. And it's $1 billion industry. Who's accessing that? Everybody. You know, most people are accessing it. So you can't ignore it. And it's accepting that it's there, being like, okay, you know what, this is here, and then giving it to Maharaj. You'll be like, you know what, I have no control over this. Tusi Maharaj kirpa karo, te tusi kaam to bacha do, growth to bacha do, log to bacha do, tusi hirde vich apna naam basa do. Like, put your naam here instead, because those things can't coexist, right? But we build. It's not like this thing people give up. I did a ardas, it didn't work. I've had that before, you know, a penji, I did a ardas, the kaam, it didn't work, whatever. And it's like, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, right? We always say this. Sikhi is not a sprint, it's a marathon. It's going to take a lot of time, and you're going to fall loads, and that's okay. But your fall will be like this, you know? You're going to keep falling, and that's fine. And some people might not fall. Some people won't fall at all. It'll be like a one. There's loads of people like that, where it's like straight away they can leave everything, because that is, everyone's different, right? And that's fine. Don't try to, if I'm saying these words, don't feel like, oh, I should fall more. No, because you're doing fine, you're doing good. Because some people feel that. I remember once there was a bibi, and she was like at a camp, and we were all saying stories of how we started running the star, and she was like, oh, I feel really sad because I've ordered the star all my life, and I feel like I don't have a story, and I feel really sad about it. We're like, no, be really happy. You always had the star, right? I don't want people to feel like it's like whatever the situation is abnormal. But when you do ardas to Maharaj, like, you know, it's like Bairamma Singh, even in his book, he experienced one thought of Kaam had led him to Nark in his dream, and in Nark he was put into this pit of like animals and fire, and he woke up with all those jokham. And you know, and I think in his book he said it took him years. If it's taking like these Gursikh years to fight lust and Kaam, you know, just know it is a battle. And it can be a very difficult battle, and it's just always going back to Maharaj and being like, you know, this is really difficult. But yeah, I definitely think like people are so vulnerable. I get really scared for my BB. Like the ones that I know like are so sweet, and I talk to them as well, and I'm like, you know, I mix very specific things, like even on social media when you're a very young age, don't accept things, and vice versa. It doesn't matter if he's a lot younger than you, because it doesn't make a difference, or a lot older than you, because you're allowing access. And it just starts with a message. It starts with 2 messages. There is no point. There is absolutely no point. Because they're like, oh, you know, but he wears bana and he has a good bana and she wears, it doesn't make a difference. It doesn't. And you should really, like, I say this to kids as well, like, you should not, and even like our nieces and nephews, I'm like, you know what, it's your choice. If you want to accept, go for it. But, you know, we're just here telling you that there's no point. There's just no point. And there's no point in that discussion, you know. There's like, there used to be overly friendly people, and I just never engage with it. Just, or how are you, baby? How's your family? You know, like, you know, those things are dangerous.
I'll tell you a funny story, Ben. So Darshiko's always getting messages from random Singhs in India, right? And so sometimes I'll log into her Facebook, and then I'll go to the message and I'll say, why are you messaging my wife? And it's really funny. But, you know, she's just one of, like, I'm sure every baby gets, like, messages from, unsolicited messages from random people, unfortunately. Yeah. And it's a shame that that's the state of the world at the moment. And yeah, you know, it's really unfortunate. But I think those are some really practical tips.
One final thing I was just going to say, with the whole thing, is just wait, like, and even when you get to the Anand Karaj point, don't just be like, oh, I like this thing, I'll start talking, or I like this baby, start talking in. Always go through a children. Always make it very official, like your parents know, it's very public, because a lot of the mistakes that I've seen youth make is keeping things secretive, and then they think they know best, which is, they do think at that time that they know best, but, you know, March goes by, we can be there to help and be like, look, no, make it very public, you're talking as a rishta, and then when in that Anand Karaj relationship, then that can be a lot easier. But definitely, that's the final thing I was going to say.
Yeah.
But beyond all of that, just make sure you're open and you go through a good stick of a cholan before you decide.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think I think you hit the nail on the head when you said that when we keep secrets, I think things can escalate and go down the wrong road if you're not open about stuff with your family or with Sangat. Okay, Panj, where can people contact you? Where can they find out more? Like, obviously, no strangers adding you. We don't want that. But, like, so, MrsKaurTeaches, Instagram, is that the best place?
Teaches. Yeah, MrsKaurTeaches on Instagram.
And it's been a massive pleasure, honestly. I've learned a lot. And, you know, I'm new on this parenting journey, but I've picked up a lot of things that I'm going to try and work on with the kids. And it's made me aware of a lot of stuff. So I really appreciate your time and your experience.
No, thank you. I feel like I've gone on and on, and I just do that. Sometimes it just comes off. But I do apologize. If anything I said was nice, it's from Guru Sahib. If anything I said was, like, not nice, it's from me, and I do apologize. I do go off. So, March, I hope it was okay. And yeah, no, thank you so much for allowing me to speak about Sikhi for a bit, which is always nice, and for the opportunity, which is always lovely, and it's nice to see, like, Sikh faces. So thank you, G.
Thank you.